There we go. Right. That is for you, madam. And sweet. All right. Links have been posted in the places. Ryan is here. Hi, Ryan. If anybody else is here, I see that there are 6 of you. You guys sound off in the comments. Let me know you're here. Say hi. There we go. Hi, Chris. Hi, Mama. My mama's here. All right. So we have already some awesome audience members here. I'm so excited that you guys are here. We'll give everybody just a little bit of time to be here. And also, so just so you guys are aware, from now on, the social hour will be falling under the umbrella of the Artist's Forge, which is basically going to be kind of the platform for these interviews. They're going to get cleaned up. All of the branding is going to get fixed. We'll be announcing our first sponsors really soon. So that is super exciting. And you guys will be able to engage with those brands. I know some people are going to be doing giveaways and other things like that, which I'm really super excited about because that means cool stuff going to you guys. And everything should be super pretty. So I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to how that is going to be. So let's get started. Welcome back to the social hour, everybody. I'm super excited that you are here. Today's guest is a photographer and artist who builds worlds from the ground up with her own 2 hands. Let's just start that over, shall we? She not only crafts extraordinary pieces of wearable art that look like they've come straight out of a fairy tale, but she does the hair and the makeup of her models as well, often building all the props and entire sets on her own. Her concepts are otherworldly and beautifully displayed in the photographs that she uses to capture them. I am super excited to welcome her here today. I feel like it's been way too long. The lovely Hannah Dare Walker. Hannah, thank you so much for being here today with me.
Hi, everybody.
Yay!
I'm excited to talk about crafts.
Yeah, crafts. Crafts for the win. So Bellissima Design Studio is here. Kelly is here. Rachel is here. Nathan, Sherry, Chris, Ryan, everybody welcome. Yay! Kelly says the audience is screaming and fangirling. So I know, it's super awesome. So Hannah, before we get started, how has this entire quarantine been for you? I've watched a few of the things you've created over the last few months. Has it been kind of like an opportunity to make things, or are you getting a little overwhelmed with the isolation?
I think the hardest part is I am used to having the run of the house to myself while the kids are in school. And so all the places that I normally would really get into what I'm working on are taken. And so like if I want to edit photos, my husband's in the den. If I want to work out here, I've got 3 kids who are all Zoom classing together in high school advanced classes, and they ask me questions and I can't help because I haven't been in high school for a really long time. And so, plus the whole I grew up with a family where like we planned for like Armageddon. And so it kind of hit a little bit of a childhood nerve that it kind of felt kind of like that. And so I went into a little bit of a panic mode for about a month or so. And then I got bored and I was like, okay, I'm over that. And so then Kat Ford Coates challenged us to do something, anything. And so I decided to go ahead and do a photo shoot since I had kids here, I had unwilling and willing models. And so I decided to go ahead and do one photo shoot with them on something I had been planning to do, which was based on Americana. And so we did a whole thing with Betsy Ross and the flag. And then we incorporated a few masks in there because obviously I was making those too. And so that was fun. And after I did that, I started deciding that I was going to explore some new ways to create some of the things that I've been building that I had been wanting to work on, and I needed them to be lighter and more flexible. And so I began working with new materials to try and explore ways to make what I do more user-friendly instead of torture devices.
Sure. So it seems like, although it's been difficult, it seems like it's been a little bit of an opportunity for you to kind of explore some new avenues for creativity.
It is. With the nicer weather, I was able to work outside in the garage. And so I had a lone space out there. But now that the weather's starting to turn here in Seattle to constant rain, it's going to be a little bit more tricky.
Yeah.
But I'll make it work because I can't stand to not be busy.
I feel that.
So.
I definitely can relate to that. Especially, I realized last night, I was telling my husband, it's almost like creativity is my way to avoid anxiety in a way. Like it's a way to make everything that's in here get out. And so it's very difficult to have that denied.
Yeah. Well, I've been through that when I injured my arms on a photo shoot I guess it was 2.5 years ago. I tore ligaments and tendons in my arm.
Good
and
grief.
They wouldn't heal. And so I had 2 years where I basically couldn't use my arms for more than half hour a day. And so that was rough because I was just hitting my stride. And then it was just like shut down. And so that was my version of COVID, I guess.
Yeah.
I couldn't create. And when I create, that is like my therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So to not have that was pretty rough.
How did you make it through that time? Did you build any coping mechanisms, or, I mean, how did you get through?
I have a tendency to kind of live in an alternate universe in my mind, and I can go there really quickly. And so I did a lot of planning, and I have a list probably 20 miles long of ideas of things that I could build potentially. And so I just worked on that palace in my mind where I fraction off everything that I want to do in there. And then, when I'm ready and the idea is ready, fully formed, it comes out. And then the need to create it is so strong that I can't sleep. It's all I can do to not finish. And once it's finished and shot and done, I'm like, and I get like a week or so reprieve, and then another one comes and it's time to start and get back into it. So it's usually just kind of this rolling wheel of
Sure.
creativity. I do have slumps like everybody does.
Right.
When I just can't create. I need to take a break. But the main thing is I have to really listen to my body because I'm not a young like all you kids are. And so I have to really be careful about overuse injuries.
Sure.
Because my brain wants to go full on 24/7, but my body is like, oh no, you're too old for that. You got to take it a little bit slower.
Yeah, it's crazy that you don't, there comes a point where your brain kind of stops. It's not part of your body anymore. Like you in your brain, you can still do all the things. And yeah, it's frustrating. And it's so great, like, to hear you say that, and then to be able to see behind you all these spectacular creations that are the result of that. It just gives it so much more power. So you said, another one pops in and then you just have this drive to create it, but where does it come from?
I think so. I have this place that I used to go to in a child in my brain to avoid whatever was going on around me. And so I could fracture off my brain and I was immediately gone from wherever I was at to this magical place. And so for me, I think when I create, it's like I'm going back to that place that I was when I was a child, and all of those magical, powerful women or magical beings that aren't really based in the reality of real life were so real to me as a kid. And so every time I create, it's like I'm releasing part of that experience that I was avoiding as a child, and I'm giving a voice to that child that didn't have the ability to speak about what was going on or to explain how she was feeling.
Oh, that's so
So instead of
powerful.
internalizing stuff like I used to, now I have a means to let it escape. And it's art has definitely healed a huge part of what was broken in me, and has given me a voice that I spent a lifetime trying to find that voice. And I was kind of at a really breaking point. I had 5 kids, and I had 3 that were under the age of 2
Oof.
and at one time, and it was just rough. It was probably the lowest rock bottom place I've ever been in my life. And I realized that I couldn't avoid the past anymore. I needed to face up to it. And so I kind of went through a big period of shutting off everything in the world and focusing on healing. And it was kind of when I was coming out of that phase, 2 things happened. One was I came across Alexia Sinclair and Kirsty Mitchell's work. And I had never seen, because really me in the photography world, no connection whatsoever until that time. I had no idea of what that world was like outside of just going to get your picture at school. I mean, that was just something that was odd to me. And when I saw those photos, it was just like something sparked within me. I was like, what the, shut the door. This is something people do. And I was like, yes. But I was like, no, I'm a mom. I've got little kids. I can't do this. You know, I have responsibilities. That's not the right time. And I met a woman around that same time who had, Deanne, who had survived stage 4 cancer. And when you meet her, she's like one of those people that you meet and it's like they have something about them, something that's like so radiating pure joy. And I was like, what the hell does she have? And finally I got brave enough. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask this woman, what is her secret? Because obviously she has something that I want. And so I went and asked her, and her secret is that when she realized she had cancer and she didn't know how much time she had left in this world, that she was gonna cut out everything negative in her life. She was gonna stop living her life for what other people's expectations were. And she was gonna pursue all her dreams and say yes to everything that she'd always dreamed of doing and had put off because of responsibilities and things like that. And so I had met her at a dog show because yes, in a former life, I showed dogs. I have Frenchies. And she always wanted to show a Frenchie. And so she did that. And she always wanted to own a horses. And so she did that. And so it kind of, the combination of seeing Kirsty Mitchell's work and Alexia Sinclair's work and Deanne's voice in my mind, pursue your joy. What brings you joy? Pursue and try everything until you find that thing and don't put it off. And so I thought, you know what? Hell with it. I'm just going to try. What do I have to lose? I'm just going to see if I mean, I had a camera and all I knew was the A button, the auto. But I didn't care. I was going to do a family photo shoot and we were going to go out. And so I spent like the winter crafting leather costumes for my kids. I was going to do a Lord of the Flies theme because that was basically symbolic of the way things were at the home. It was mass chaos. Kids were flying. I mean, we had gates and locks and everything everywhere. And I was like,
Sounds
okay,
familiar.
Lord of the Flies, this is it. And so I was like hand dyeing leather and doing bone beads and beaver teeth, this and that. I was going crazy on it. And so I made this shoot. We went out and we photographed it. And I had so much fun. I'm not sure if my kids had fun, but I loved it. And so then it was like just after that, I was in. And so luckily I have my older daughter who, Miranda, who was gracious enough to work for French fries and milkshakes. And I began designing a little bit at a time. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and recreate the fan dress that Christy Mitchell did, just to see if I can kind of come close to something even remotely resembling what she did. And so I worked on that dress and it came out pretty decently. It took me about 9 months. And then I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try the leaf cape. So 10,000 leaves from China later, we made the leaf cape and we did that shoot. And then I'm like, okay, these don't totally suck. I've gone out of manual to, I've learned a little bit about the computer. I was only using Lightroom, but it was good. And I moved into the manual mode and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to make some stuff of my own. And after that, I was gone. The other thing that I had been experiencing is I've always struggled with night terrors my whole entire life. And as soon as I started putting my hands to crafting what was in my mind, gone. For the first time in 40 years.
Wow.
No night terrors. And for me, I don't care if nobody ever sees my work or my pictures or anything. It's worth it just to be able to sleep.
Oh my goodness.
And so for me, what I do is all about healing and all about a peace that comes over me when I'm working. And so I'm addicted because it feeds me like nothing else I've ever had in my whole entire life. And it gives me a voice that I've never had before. And it's just fun. I mean, I can go out there and I can work for 16 hours and it feels like 5 minutes. And I just love it.
That's beautiful, Hannah. I know that there are so many people out there who can identify with that. And something that I've found is a thread with some creators is that there's this beautiful thing, this beautiful gift that they have to make and to create things that touch and inspire other people so often seems to grow out as a coping mechanism for something that we've dealt with in our past. And so what did it take for you to recognize that that's what it was? Because sometimes I know we will do that without realizing that that's actually what we're doing. Was there something that allowed you to be introspective like that, or something that other people might be able to learn from you as a way that they can look at themselves and find out, how they can apply that maybe to healing themselves through art?
I think there's a fear that we have, like our rational brain is constantly thinking, oh, you can't do that. You're never good enough. You can't, who are you to think that you can create this? And I think for me in my life, I was so low that I figured the only place I can go is up, right? I'm like, I was at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, I couldn't imagine being and feeling worse than I did. And I was grasping for something. And I think it's having that bravery to at least try. And I was willing to risk anything, at that point. I was willing to try everything until I found that thing that spoke to me. And for some people, it may not be photography. It may not be costume design. It may be math. Like some people are just like math wizards or painters or whatever it is that fuels you, that brings you that peace that you love doing more than anything else. For me, when I was a kid, I mean, I kind of dabbled a little bit in it when I was a kid, but it all involved cardboard and felt. So, I mean, when I was a kid, I would make like Wonder Woman costumes and lassos out of fabric. And like, I turned into Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken or Mr. Peanut. It didn't matter. I loved the transformation process and the pretend process. of being something other than what I was and where I was. And I think there's a power in realizing that you have the ability to make that a reality. If you can at least try and experiment and realize, I mean, believe me, I have some way effed up stuff hidden in the garage that's in the trash bin or at the landfill that did not turn out. And I'm willing to learn from my failures and realize that, oh, this medium can't do that. So like in my process of trying to figure out a new medium for my corsets, because the one that I've been using, it's pretty, I mean, it has some flexibility, but it's kind of rigid. And I wanted to allow for more movement. And so I went to Reynolds Industries and talked to the guy that worked there. And I said, okay, this is what I want. What do you have that can help me? And he recommended a couple products. And so that's what I've been working on during COVID, is experimenting with these products to see if I can create the same looking design or similar design, but yet have more movement ability and more, you know, so a model can bend, a dancer can move in it, something that can give me more in my photos than, but yet still the three-dimensional work that I love. And so I've been working with that. And it's definitely, my first mold that I cast with this stuff, there's been a couple of epic feels. One was expanding foam expands. And that's a whole different thing. Like, I'm not a math major. And so like I'm doing the expanding at home with 3 times its size. Oh, okay.
Right. Like,
in there.
yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, I feel like the Freaky Friday soap scene in that old movie. And like it's just like coming out all over. And I'm like, oh, shit. And this stuff is like marshmallow cream tar.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
so sticky. And like, I'm like seeing it getting closer and closer to my husband's car. He doesn't know it. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is not good. Or so then anyway, it comes out of the mold and I get it all trimmed up and put up on the corset. And so this is for my swan corset that I worked
Mhm.
with a little, the bird corset has like the tail feathers that stick
Yes.
out 3-dimensionally and like the wings and the head. And I put it on the corset and I went, whoops.
Oh.
It was like this dead bird with like a broken neck. I'm like, huh, okay, so that's gonna need some help. So then it's a lot of problem solving. So not everything's perfect. I learn from every medium that how far can I push it? What can I do? What can I do? This new medium I'm working with is temperamental, like unreal. There's so many constraints on what you can and cannot do, but I think I figured it out, and I'm hoping that in the next few weeks I'll have something that's going to be allowing somebody to move, hold the structure that I need and the parts that I need, and is going to be something that I can produce in not 3 years or 3 months, but maybe in a month, yes. Which to me seems more doable on a mass scale. Like people have asked, oh, do you sell this or can you make this or whatever? And I'm like, 3 years, hell no.
Yeah.
But in that short amount of time, I think I can do it. So I'm still testing it out. I mean, I'm gonna put it through its paces before I'm gonna commit fully, because I want to make sure that I deliver something that's gonna live up to people's demands. Because I know photographers put stuff through a lot.
Yeah, we do indeed. But that's really exciting. I know we tease you a lot about, and we're like, Hannah, give, and you're like, but these are my babies. But I know so many people will be excited to hear that there's the potential of getting their hands on some beautiful things that you have made.
I'm
so
closer to being able
guys.
to let go.
Well, you know, having heard your story and what this process means for you of creating this means of transformation, that was so powerful to hear, and it makes a lot of sense to hear and to understand, I mean, aside obviously from the process of creation, which is really involved and takes a lot of time, to hear what that means to you spiritually, emotionally, etc. It's no wonder I wouldn't want to let anybody else near them either. I would be like, no. But yeah, that's when you said that, it really stuck in here. It makes so much sense to be able to be a new, stronger, better, more beautiful thing that can't be hurt by the regular world stuff. You know, it is something different. And man, that's so powerful. I really, really am touched by that. So as we were talking about that, was there ever a point for you where you realized it, where it was like, oh, that's what I'm doing? Because I know for me that took engaging with other people and them asking me, but why, and me having to go back and back and back until finally I was like, oh, this is why I'm doing that. How did you get to that place?
So for me, I mean, obviously I had an immediate change, transformation, no more night terrors.
Right.
That was something that was just unheard of for me. I would wake up screaming in the night, night after night after night. And to not do that anymore was like, huh, what's changed? What am I doing? And also, I think because I was open and I was ready to, and I was really introspective at the time because I had
Right.
gone through 3 years of therapy with a saint of a man. I was like, I picked this psychoanalyst guy based on the fact that A, I could beat him up if I needed to, and B, he wasn't crazier than me, and C, he had seen in his 70 odd, 50-yard, career of seeing, people with issues. He'd seen everything under the sun. So I wasn't going to surprise him with anything that we talked about. And so I was coming out of my work with him ready. And I felt like I was ready for something. I just didn't know what that was, but I was open to it. And so I was really looking. And so, I mean, I love dogs. I love and so that's when I started showing this, right after I had finished up with him. And I love the fact that, like, you walk in the door and those animals just love you no matter what. I mean, they're like kissing on you and loving you, and you go out for 5 seconds and you come back in and they're like, oh,
You're back.
and showing them was fun. I mean, I met a lot of really amazing people when I was doing that. And, but I also knew at the same time that I wasn't really good at it. I was doing it, but it wasn't like my thing. And for some of those people, it is their thing. They are like, it is like, they can recite genealogies of every dog for like 4 or 5 generations out. And I'm like, oh, that's not me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't want to breed. That's kind of freaky scary because I don't want to see my dog doing that.
No, they're pure, perfect little saintly.
There were signs I wasn't cut out for it. But at the same time, when I met Deanne and realized that I needed to be open to every experience, I was ready. I was really, really ready for something. And seeing the work that I saw and realizing that that was actually something that people could do.
Right.
Knowing how much I love costuming. So, like, I actually was, and I have a lot of volunteer work under my belt with Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts and things like that. And so, like, when I was a Cub Scout leader, I was all about the costuming. I would come in as like the Highlander. We would have the Highland Games. I would come in with like a 16-foot rocket ship, like for like the rocket things that they would do. I came in with a 16-foot rocket ship dressed as a conehead alien painted silver. And like I did like the gold miner with like the full-on beard, and I looked like totally like I should be on like some like TMC out channel or something. And I was mining for gold, and like the good news is my accent, my one and only accent, can be pirate, Irish, or
Right.
it works for everything. So I have my one accent that I do, and I would come in full on in character because I wanted to ignite in those kids the imagination that I felt. And so, I mean, I know that I have a thing for costumes, and I know that I love to ignite that childhood passion, that innocence, and that utter joy that kids have when they can just, oh, Christmas! And, they open up the
Yes.
presents, they don't even know what it is, but they're so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Love that about kids. And so my volunteer work had some elements of costuming, I'm not going to lie, and construction, but it was all with cardboard and felt and like just stuff. I would jerry rig everything to make it work. And I would drive to like the school 5 blocks away with a 16-foot rocket ship strapped to the top of my van. And we'd be going in there and I'd be dressed as like the long haired thing. And I loved it, loved every minute of it. But I was ready for me time. And this work is me. 100%. It fills me, it feeds me. It's everything that I want. And for people to, if you're nervous about, I'm not going to be good enough, oh, I can't reach this level, well, you're never going to reach any level unless you try. You're never, and you have to be willing to fail, and you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to dive in, all in.
Yes.
And that's something that I do with any hobby I've ever tried. Is when I go in 110%.
Yeah.
It's like all I can do. And so I've cycled through hobbies over the years, but nothing's ever really fed me like this one.
Right.
And so I've done jewelry making, I've done, volunteer this and that, and all these other areas in my life. I've been PTA president, I've done all these things, and nothing ever hit me as like, this is it, until I started trying.
Yeah.
And so you have to just at least give it a go. And maybe it's not for you. And like some areas of like what I do, I'm like, oh, hells no, I can't learn that. But this person does it amazing. I'm going to pay the money to support their business.
Right.
And yes, if you can felt fabric, you go, girl. This is what I want. Please make it.
Right.
And so like Patricia Garrison made me for my leaf fabric that I wanted. She hates the color green. She hates the color orange now, because I push her, and I have a tendency to do this. I push crafters to the edges of their limits, and I love it. I love, like I'll see something that somebody will make on Etsy or other places, and I'm like, that's kind of what I want, but I want it this big and this color. And I know we can do it on this level, but I want it this.
Yes.
I like big and bold and in your face and fantasy. And so I push them a little bit, and I'm willing to pay for it to have them bring their talents to like the next level. And I love it. So
yes.
if I can't do it and I can't learn it, like it's going to take me 3 years to learn it, I'm going to pay somebody else to do it.
Sure.
But when it comes to sculpt work and the sculpting part, I love that. And so that's what that's my wheelhouse.
Right.
If you can wear it and sculpt it, I'm in.
She's gonna do it. Let's get to a couple comments really quick before we kind of go back and start talking a little bit more about that process for you.
Yes.
So lots of comments already, people just saying they're so excited to see you here and learn about your process. And so that's really beautiful. And then, so Kelly would like to know, which we talked a little bit about, how the creativity comes to you. Do you brainstorm? Does it just come in a flash? How do you experience that? This is what I need to make moment.
So there's a couple of different ways that things come. Some things are like just, they're there already. They're places I've been in my mind, things that I've imagined. And then there's like those moments, like if you're listening to a soundtrack and like I create stories in my mind when I'm listening to soundtracks, and things just develop in my mind. Like I'm seeing a movie in my mind when I'm watching music. And so sometimes all of a sudden it's like, boom, I like the characters are like in my brain and they're like acting in front of me, and like all of a sudden it solidifies into a shot. And I'm like, okay, now how on earth am I gonna freaking create this? And so music does it. Sometimes I'm watching a movie and like if it's a costume movie, oh my gosh, I have to watch it at least 3 times because the first time I'm so distracted by the costuming, I don't even know. They're just like silent film. I don't even know what they're saying. It's like just like costuming. I'm like, oh, and it's like I'm like trying to get as close as I can to look at the threads and like, oh my gosh, how did they make that? And then I have to watch it again and again, and then I'm like, okay, I saw the show. All right, I can see the show. So like the Elizabeth movies, every single one of them I've seen at least 7 times. Game of Thrones, obviously, that's an epic, awesome show, and like the costuming, that's amazing. And so seeing those, but then it's like I'm like, huh, I see the movie like going another way. I see this character like this. Like I don't like the way the character's going, but in my mind, I'm like in another place with that character and I want to create it. So rewriting movies in my brain, I come up with things that way. I'm fascinated and I absolutely love, as a child, my aunt had these Japanese wedding dolls. And these
Ah,
vintage dolls that she had on display because she lived in Japan for several years and my uncle lived in Japan for several years. And for some reason, those dolls have stuck in my brain. And so like for a whole entire year, everything was about those Japanese dolls. And I had to recreate characters based on those Japanese dolls that I'd morphed into like the sun and moon goddess and various characters. Uh-oh.
oh, you're good.
Okay. And so I went to that place. And so for me, that's kind of where I went during that phase, was based on that childhood memory of those, her curio cabinet of those Japanese dolls. The apocalypse, or the movie that had like the Aztec, the Mayan
Oh, was
family,
that
did
what,
like the whole entire
10,000
Mayan thing. I love,
Apocalypto, right? Is
yeah,
that the one?
apocalypse.
Yeah.
That thing, like I was like, what? I'm like, I love culture, and I love all the different cultures and the different gods and the different ways that they imagine themselves in relation to, you know, the next life and stuff. And so recreating those things, I love exploring that. I love exploring saints and imagining stories within like what a saint would feel or do or be or whatever. And I love the elven, everything elven. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care what that is. Like
Same
I
girl,
read a lot of
same.
sci-fi books, and when I read sci-fi and fantasy books, I'm like costuming every single character in my brain. And I love the 1900s and various eras. Like I imagine traveling through time. Like if I was going to travel through time, who would I be? Who would I be with? What would they be wearing? And so I imagine that. I imagine myself like in all those vintage movies. So when I was a kid, we didn't have cable very often. And when we did, we were only pretty much allowed to watch PBS and American movie classics. And all the characters in those American movie classics were definitely an influence on the places that I would go on some things. I just like characters and designing for places that are different. So if you're trying to get inspiration, if you're listening to music, let your mind wander. Imagine what's going on in the music. Imagine a character. What are they doing? What are they wearing? What's the scene? What's going on? And usually when I do that, something happens. Something comes to my mind and it solidifies into a costume form and a scene that I have to recreate. And hopefully, I don't know if that'll help anybody else, but at least that's where my brain goes.
No, I think I'm actually positive that it will.
So writers tell stories all the time, and like you're a
Yes.
writer, and so like
It's the same. You see it in your head. I just record it like this.
What I see is like I'm seeing a character come to life when I'm reading a book, and I'm like, okay, this is what they look like, and this is why I do not like to watch movies that are based on that I've read, because it's like it ruins it. Because oh no, that doesn't look like that. This is what it looks like. So part of the amazing part about creating some of the things that I do is the fact that the costume that I've imagined is come to life in my hands. I can photograph it the way I imagined it, and I'm still working on that part. I'm not gonna lie. I am late to the game on photography. I don't have 30 years of lighting and photography experience, but I have a vision, and I just pray every time I photo shoot that something's going to come close to what I have in mind. The costuming's there.
I think you're doing pretty good, Anna.
Close, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge because I never quite get there. And that's part of why I can't let go of any of my pieces, because it's like I didn't quite hit that bar. I haven't fully closed the book. Like if I actually hit that bar, then boom, done. It can leave.
But that really makes sense. Yeah, that makes so much sense. 100%. And I definitely go through a similar process. I feel like a lot of mine they end up being what if, especially when I'm writing. It's like something will be inspiring from somewhere, and I'm like, but what if it was this? And then they did this, and it goes and goes and goes, and pretty soon I'm like, yeah, and then they did, and then they saw it, and they said this, and they did the thing. So I 100% can empathize with you there.
Such an art form to be able to put into words and build a picture in people's minds through your writing.
It's magic, really. It's like you will think this now and see this in your head, and then people do. That's insanity.
And then you'll feel this. And
right. Yeah. Time to break your heart now. I'm so sorry to all my readers. So let's see. Kelly also said, it's amazing how many of us struggle with the past and use this means of art therapy. Hannah, you're my favorite.
Oh, I love Miss Kelly.
She's so
I love
great.
supporting her, and like Cheryl Walsh and other people that have totally like taken me under their wing and been so kind. So kind.
It can be such a beautiful community.
And I've met so many incredibly talented, artistic people that just bring me to like my knees when I see their work. I'm like, oh, I only wish I could be that good. And I mean, the one great thing about this art form is that you're never done learning.
Never.
You're never done seeing the art and the beauty and everything that they shoot. And you're like, holy hell, how do they do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But you know what? It's part of the journey.
Yeah.
I'll die before I've even remotely come close to trying to capture what I love. But it doesn't matter. It's just part of the process, and it's fun. It's fun.
Agreed. And the journey is as important, if not more important, than the destination. So let's try to get to a couple more of these really quick. So Nathan would like to know, is there a place we can go to learn some of your techniques or recipes for the lightweight material you're using?
Why, yes. And I've got a ton of stuff, people.
She has the stuff, people, so prepare yourselves.
I made up a spreadsheet, and I'll send it to Nicole that she can put up on the site of links to all the different mediums and places that I love the most.
Hannah's sharing her links, guys.
I am. There's some definite great tutorial sites of places and people that know way more than me. Like they focus completely on the craft of designing. And so like if I usually kind of learn at the moment, like I need something to do this. And then I go to those sites and I learn whatever it is to do. But these people are like all in on that stuff. And so I'll put links to the sites that you can go to learn more. I will say this, as photographers, we have a lot to learn from cosplay design. Those people have costuming, and theater people have costuming down to a science, and they have it down to an art. And there's places to go, thank God for the internet, that you can learn pretty much any damn thing you want to, and they teach it to you. And so when I sculpt, I use monster clay. I love that stuff. And you can reuse it again and again and again. And then once it's fully contaminated, you get another brick of it. But that stuff works great for all of my sculpts that I do. Making wire structures to support things is a big deal. The glory of epoxy. I love epoxy glue. It holds like nobody's business on it. It will pretty much adhere to almost anything. SKS foam is great for hard, lightweight foam projects. Works great, but it's brittle. So if you want it to bend or flex, like if you're going to wear it, not the choice. If you have somewhat movement, Michaels sells the Art Minds modeling foam. Super lightweight, works really well. This is kind of a gear I made for a project I'm working on. See, this is dried. See how much it flexes? And it doesn't crack or break. You can't get that with the SKS foam. The SKS foam is more for something that you want solid. Like when I made a key for my secret garden corset, that is like rock solid. It's almost like it was a solid form to begin with. The new material I'm working with is similar to the foam. Look at this. This is a gear. Same gear, but it's almost like you're wearing a Nerf football. That's basically what it is, but you can paint it. This is pretty kick-ass cool stuff, but there's a learning curve. So anyway, the thicker you go, the firmer it gets. So like the dragons that I've just been sculpting, see how it holds shape? It's not flopping over like a dead, killed bird. So I mean, it works. And the reason it's gold is because I coated the inside of the mold with Pearl X mica. It comes in a multitude of colors and metallics, and you can make something look like metal or whatever. And so you coat it in there, and it just comes out looking like this. Magic! So anyway, it's cool. But if you don't coat it in mica, it comes out looking like this. Blah. I mean, white dragon's okay, but it's not that exciting as metal, right? So, I mean, that stuff's pretty cool. The other medium that I love, Epoxy Sculpt. It's a version of epoxy, but sculptable. It's way awesome. So like that stuff sticks to pretty much anything. So if you've got like a 3-dimensional thing that you forgot to add your horns to, or like it comes out of the mold and it's got some flaws, you can totally fix it by using your Epoxy Sculpt to add it on there, and it will stick like it was made with it, and it will not come off for nothing. So like the horns on my octopus headpiece are all Epoxy Sculpt made. And those things aren't coming off for nothing. I mean, I could kick it and stomp it and they're still on there. Like the whole headpiece.
Please don't kick it and stomp it.
The whole headpiece would break before it would come off. Just to show you, this is what happens when you try and bend the SKS lightweight foam. Do you see that? I tried to bend that, it just shatters. So don't buy that if you want something with flexibility. When you have things that flex, you have to be very careful about the paints you use.
Right.
And you can get cracking on almost anything, because anytime you flex or stretch joints, and there's a whole line of paints and reviews and stuff on all the different sites that I'll give you on each of the mediums that you can use for things that you paint. So like a lot of craft stores will carry the FX paint, and it's okay, but the pigment, like you have to get a couple of layers before you actually get that look that you're wanting.
Sure.
So it's okay. There's a brand of paint that I use called Nova Color Paint. It's based in California, and they use mica pigments within their paints, and the colors are way more brilliant and more flexible. There's paints based specifically called Flexi paint, and I'm probably pronouncing this right, velour paint, aerosol paint that you can paint, that will both give you metallic finishes and give you the flex that you need on projects. I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent here.
No, please. I know that people right now are losing their minds because they have been
So
wanting to hear your secrets
are
forever.
Great for having the flexibility that you need, and yet still looking metallic or interesting to the eye. The one thing as photographers that we hate, at least what I hate when I photo shoot, is glare. Like that spectacular highlights on my costuming to the point where you can't see what the hell is going on because it's like, ah. So finding the right kind of sealer to go on top of your project that isn't like high gloss, but yet will photograph beautifully and not matte whatever it is you're doing or cause it to be hazy or foggy. I've totally had that happen where I've completed a project, painted it, and then sealed it, and it went to shit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just spent 2 weeks painting this dang throne and I have to start all over. So like my skull throne that I worked on.
Yeah.
Twice.
No.
Twice it went bad. And so I've kind of found a product that I think delivers that matte finish that I like. The velour paint has a spray paint that works pretty good, that gives you the flex, that gives you the matte finish that isn't too bad. I think part of what I fight here in Seattle is the humidity.
Right.
And it gets inside the products that I use. And so that is part of my problem. People ask a lot of times, how do I secure my corsets? Well, I use cotton stripping and D-rings that you can get from Amazon.com. And that's just awesome. Like I'll just make like little strips with the D-rings on it. And that's how I, put it all along the back. And like if someone was actually gonna wear this to an event, they could just use like satin ribbons or something fancy to tie it off. But for my photo shoots, it's zip ties. I'm not gonna lie, that's a little secret.
Yep.
I zip tie them ladies in there and they just wave their arms around and they look beautiful. And then we're done with the photo shoot. I'm really good at designing things that you just stand in.
Yep.
I'm not the movie industry person that people think I should be. It's not gonna happen unless this new material works out. The other thing that I use is when I make my molds, I've used the monster clay to make a sculpt. And then it's like I have to cast it into something so I can reproduce it multiple times. Because some pieces I'm like making, so like for the one corset that I'm doing, the dragon one, I'm making like little Celtic knot work.
Right.
I don't want to have to make that again and again and again. It takes a lifetime, right? So I just have to make one. And then I just recast it multiple times. So I use a couple of, I love smooth on products. I'm not going to lie. I love them. They have like saved my life on a lot of projects. And so for my mold making, I use dragon skin, which look how this flexes.
Oh, wow.
So like if you have like a head that's completely three-dimensional, you can pull it out of this and it will stretch and come back into shape, which is nice. But if I have something that's completely like flat, then I'll use the Rebound 25. And it holds up pretty well. It's a brushable silicone. Smooth On is amazing about having video tutorials. And so they are a great learning source. And I'll include some book links to people that teach a little bit about the Worbla and Epoxy. That's a whole nother level.
Worbla is such an interesting stuff to work with.
Epoxy, and I think the key to costuming is you have to pick one medium at a time.
Yes.
And it's stages of what you can learn. So like there's a designer that I love, Linda Friesen, who makes like really wicked, awesome, like almost looks like wings shoulder pieces.
Okay.
And all she uses is these little plastic pellets that you heat up in water called Instamorph. And you heat it up and it turns plexi, and then when it dries, it turns into hard plastic. And
Oh,
so she
okay.
just does a little piece at a time and gradually works on it. It takes about a month to finish a full shoulder piece. But it's pretty awesome stuff. And then there's the whole world of Worbla. Oh my gosh. So that's a whole different realm of discussion.
Yes, yeah,
Worbla
it
is like, there's like 7 kinds of Worbla, and each is good for different things. It's basically what it is. It's like, it looks like this cardboard stuff, and you heat it and it remembers the shape when it dries. And there's black, white, clear, brown. It's all different kinds. And a lot of cosplayers use that. And so I've worked with that a little bit. Like my feather corset, I wanted to make something that was completely made from Worbla. And so that was 100% made from Worbla. Then there's the European version called Fibra. Fibra is like silly putty gone mad.
That sounds like fun, actually.
It's like you melt it and it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. And it's like, but it's great for making, like if you want to make molds of something, like you have a mold of something you've made, you can heat that stuff into it and it will remember the shape, and you can make crests and various things using it.
Wow.
And so there's a designer that uses that to make these really wicked, awesome cathedral window corsets. And each, and this is the thing, it's like when I get a new medium, I have to test it. I have to test, like, how far can I push it? What can it do and what can't it do? And so there's a learning curve with every medium that's out there. But luckily there's YouTube where they can at least give you some guidelines of what you can and can't do, and then you can experiment with your own. The other course that opened up a lot of opportunities for me in the courses that I do is Organic Armor Arts. It's run by Paul and his wife, and they create and they create a lot of stuff for Burning Man and for belly dancers.
Okay.
And amazing stuff. Like, he's an artist, like, no, hands down, like, he's amazing. So when I saw that they were putting on this course, this online course, I'm like, oh, hell yes, sign me up. Boom, I'm in, paying the money. And I realized it was like for an armband course. Don't be daunted, because nobody really wears armbands, right? I mean, maybe Conan the Barbarian, but we're not going to really wear armbands for photography, right? We're going into headdresses, corsets, all that stuff. And so when I saw that class, I'm like, oh, I think I can take this to a new level. And so immediately I just ditched the corset. I never even made an armband. I went straight to corsets. And there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. Once you learn the material that the recipe of the components that they use, you can morph it into something else. And that's basically what I did at first. Was I took that course and I was like, oh, heck yes. And I made it. And I haven't looked back since. So anyway, I could talk crafting each medium for like hours of what can happen. And I may try and come up with some type of training course of, you know, which mediums to use, what's great and what's not. I've got all sorts of stuff.
I'm sure people would love that, because already people are like, so when are you going to do a workshop, Hannah? They're twiddling their fingers.
Workshops is this stuff, like, it's a lot of like, you do it and then you have to wait. And like, paint's drying.
Yeah.
6 months later, I can work, which is why I make like 9 things at once.
Sure.
Because I can do this, 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 and this, and then I go back to the number 1 and I work on this, 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 and this. So it possibly may have to more take the shape of like how-to type videos that you can do it from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I can't
That's
imagine people not
expensive travel.
jumping all over that. So, guys, we have already come up. I can't believe it's our hour already. If you guys have any more questions for Hannah, make sure that you get them in the comments now so that we can get to them before we close out. Um,
I'm back.
Also, if you guys are still here and you haven't subscribed yet, why haven't you subscribed? Like and share so that other people who don't know about Hannah can come and watch and learn from her like we have got to today.
Oh, and
Um,
Nicholas interviewed Lillian and Bella and like people I didn't even know of that I totally love now.
I
You
know
totally have to subscribe.
there's so
Oh yeah.
many amazing people. I feel so blessed to have gotten to talk to some just incredible artists and been able to find out more about about how and why they create the things that they create. So Kathleen would like to know, what are you working on now? And then I'll kind of back that up. Somebody also wanted to know, what's your favorite thing that you've created so far?
Okay. The favorite thing I created is whatever I'm working on currently. I mean, basically that's how it goes. So whatever I'm working on currently is the thing that I love the most. And then it moves on to the next thing I'm working on. Favorite photo shoot that I've done so far. Some things have happened out of like failures. So like the octopus photo shoot that we did, that happened because my model would not take, I told her we had this epic failure that day with a makeup artist. I had to fire her. I've never in my life had to fire anybody in my life, but it was so bad. So bad. On like, we're talking like mime clown level bad.
Oh no.
And like like my poor model, she's a saint, Emily. I love you. She lost like all of her baby hair that you get at the bangs because of the situation that we had happen with the makeup artist. And she still was so upset at 11 p.m. She's like, can we please do the photo shoot? And I'm like, oh my God, she just lost all of her baby hair. I'm like, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes to make this girl happy. So that photo shoot happened. I did her makeup that day because that whole situation, like, it took me 2 hours to take off what happened. And that photo got a silver award because of her. She was my gold award at WPPI. Luckily she'd worked with me before. Having a model that at least you have some history with, so when epic failures happen, but I mean, things like that are because of her, that she persevered for that shot. But like that, I love the octopus headpiece. I love it. I love the leaf cape. I love everything about that cape. I would just wear it around the house if I could, but I don't. I don't design for my size. I design for like these ethereal model sizes. And like my daughter, I'm not sure what, she's just born Victorian. Like you buy like the Victorian outfits of like the little mini size waist and like the teeny like torsos, and they're so petite, and I was like, that's her. She was just born that way. And I'm like, obviously to that somehow in the genetic thing it just spooled out that that's her. But a lot of my designs are based because I was wanting her to model them for me.
Right.
So those are my favorites, if I had to pick, but really it's whatever I'm working on at the time. Currently, I've been building the ice theme stuff, experimenting with a new medium with that. It's probably going to go into my relegated, slightly torturistic for the model to wear, but looks freaking amazing on camera.
Which is the important part, let's be honest.
So it's not going to be on any film stuff soon. It's more, and I'm also, Nick Bush is an amazing photographer who does like miniature sets.
Mm-hmm.
I built this whole miniature cathedral inspired by his work. I'm like, oh yes, we're in COVID. I can't go to cool locations. I'm just going to make my own.
That's right.
So the cathedral came because of Nick Bush. And I haven't shot that yet because I can't bring models into the house yet. So it's just,
Yeah.
so I built way too many props for that because I've had way too much time on my hands.
Never.
The exciting part for people watching is probably the fact that I'm working on potentially finding this new medium as a means to sell or rent some of my designs.
Did you hear that, guys? I hope you're paying attention.
This is gonna be the way I can do it because the other stuff takes way too long.
Sure.
And this medium is it gives the model flexibility to move. It gives them, I can make it in, instead of 3 years or 3 months time, I can make it in like a much shorter time frame. And I just feel like it's going to endure a little bit more and it'd be easier to ship. It's lighter weight.
Sure.
I feel like it has, until I could come up with that, I didn't feel really comfortable just shipping something and completely impractical off to somebody.
Right.
I wanted it to be something that I would, if I was buying something that I felt like, oh, hey, hell yeah, that's cool. I can totally do that. They can do this, they can jump, or they can do whatever in it, and it'll be totally worked great.
Right.
Whereas, you know, some of my other stuff, like it works and it's functional, but I feel like it was too heavy. And I
Sure.
something that involved more movement. So I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing in the product so far. I'm hoping the weather holds so that I can make all the bases. I've got 12 projects running at once.
Oh my goodness, woman.
And all using this new medium. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
If it pans out, then yes, there could be potential for the bird corset, the dragon corset, and I have a French, the French porcelain corset are the 3 that I'm working on and making multiple versions of.
Oh my goodness. So everybody who is here, cross your fingers, say a little prayer, do whatever you do so that this stuff works out.
We'll see. And then I have a lot of impractical things that I'm working on too. But
well, the impractical stuff is sometimes the best.
Yeah. And if you have questions about a medium or a craft, feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram. I don't have a web page. I'm too busy crafting to figure that part out. And so Instagram or Facebook are the best ways to reach me at Hannah Dare Walker.
Perfect. That is the perfect segue. Oren says, insert excited Muppets animal gif. So, and then also he said, Hannah, can you infuse your magical talent into my soul? You are awesome. Never stop.
Oh, he's a sweetheart. I love Oren. I met him at TPM and I was like, immediately when I saw him, I'm like there's certain people that like you meet and you're like, oh,
yes,
I recognize you. Or I see something in you that's in me. And I was like, immediately, oh, hey, Oren, I know you. Boom. Yeah, he's a sweetheart.
That's awesome. I love those kind of connections. It's just one of those things that reminds you that there's something bigger out there connecting us all together, which I love. All right, guys. So we have come to the end of the show. Thank you guys so much for being here today. And even though we have covered that a little bit, I always like to end with this. And I know you've been here before, Hannah, so you know it's coming. So what is your why?
Well, I pretty much covered that earlier. The why
did.
I can sleep at night. And
Yes.
so I can feel that zen that comes when my hands hit that medium. I'm like just gone. And whether it's my finger on the trigger of the lens photographing what I've created, or whether it's my hands beginning that first sculpt, every minute of it is just pure joy. And that's my why, is to just dive into joy every day, every medium that I possibly can, and just to live life with joy and no regrets.
I love that. I think that is perfect. Hannah, that was outstanding. Thank you so much for being here and
Thank
for
you for having
sharing
me.
sharing all of this amazing stuff. I know so many people have hit me up and been like, they're so excited about this. They've been dying to see it and hear from you and just admiring your work and wanting to know something about how you create the amazing things you create. So everybody that was here today, Chris and Ryan and Kelly, Nathan, Sickled Foot Photography, Dennis was here, Oren was here, Bellissima Design Studio, Catherine, everybody who was here. Thank you guys so much. I love having you here. I appreciate you all so much for showing up and asking these questions and just really engaging with the amazing artists that we bring. And I know many of you have subscribed, so thank you. If you haven't, will you do that? And will you share this? There are too many people who don't know about Hannah yet, and they need to hear about this amazing creative and the beautiful things she makes, and hopefully to be inspired by the fact that she, like you, was in a spot that was not so great. Like so many of us have been, places that are dark, and we've found ways to use art to pull ourselves up out of those places, and then hopefully to drag other people along with us and let them know what is possible. So share this with somebody that you think would benefit from it. Next, so the next guest we have, I believe, is Hilma Smith. She will be here. She is an amazing Photoshop composite artist who has worked with platforms like Kelby One. She makes beautiful composites. My favorites are of her ones with her kids. So she will be here on the 6th. So I'm hoping you guys will come join us for that. And Hannah, thank you again so much. This was a really beautiful conversation, so many inspiring things. And I hope that it was not only worth it for our guests today, but I hope that it was worth it for you as well.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you, Nicole.
Yes.
It's been fun watching you and all the amazing artists that you've interviewed.
Yeah, they're crazy. I'm always so grateful. So yep, that is it for today, guys. Thank you again for coming. Come hang out next week. And until then,